In the jungles of South America, a chilling phenomenon occurs. When army ants lose their pheromone trail, they begin to follow one another in an endless, mindless circle, a spiral of death. They march not knowing they are doomed until their tiny bodies give out. This is called an ant mill. And here's the terrifying truth. Humans have versions of these as well. In politics, in finance, and in the trends you blindly follow, humanity has many of its own death spirals. But unlike ants, we have a way out.
Being hive-minded for the collective good is always a great thing. But when all parties affected by the group decision are not considered, either on purpose or by mistake, catastrophic things can occur. Unfortunately, these human catastrophes are very common and often a result of groupthink. Groupthink is a psychological phenomenon coined in 1972 by Irving Yannis that occurs when a group of people where the desire of harmony or conformity in the group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome. Sometimes groupthink can be a result of poor group infrastructure. Maybe too many of one position. Let's think about a restaurant if you only had cooks and no waiters, or you only had waiters and no cooks. Or a sports team with only offensive players or only defensive players. None of that could work. Everyone is focused on one thing and not considering the overall customer experience in the restaurant example. And in the sports example, everyone is focused on their task instead of the overall team goal, and that's to win. Maybe the team is too insulated. Maybe they're not given or not willing to do the research necessary to consider the well-being of all stakeholders in a project, including the clients being serviced by the choices made by the group. And of course, the team could have all the right team members, but a leader that disregards the team's true professional or moral perspectives to carry out their own personal agenda. In this scenario, personal accountability is surrendered to the leader due to one or more of the following common fears. Personal pattern of failure. If your last 2 or 3 decisions didn't work out that well, the last thing you're gonna do is be excited about making another independent decision and facing another failure. So it may be easier for you to step aside and let someone else call the shots on that one. The next most common fear is that there's a high stress from external threats. Now, external threats is pretty broad, but right now we're going to just call it personal livelihood. Your personal livelihood is in jeopardy. Now, usually you've got to ask yourself, how long are you willing to trade your morality for cash? At some point, you're going to have to find a position or a company or a leadership team whose goals align more with your morals, or you're going to have to find ways to numb yourself to the atrocities that you're abetting in by ignoring your best judgment for personal gain. Usually this may come with a morality difference. The person you're supposed to speak up for, usually the client, they're not in the building to speak up for themselves. If you turn a blind eye, it's easier for you to get a paycheck. If you don't turn that blind eye, you're going to have to speak up and put your livelihood in jeopardy. But it's a lot easier to turn that blind eye because so many other people are doing it. I mean, if everybody else is blind, you get to be blind too, right? But lack of accountability can become contagious, and if groupthink spreads too wide, let's talk about some of the consequences of widespread groupthink. Let's start with money. Who could forget the financial crisis of 2008? Now, in case you forgot,
basically, Louis Ranieri's mortgage bonds were amazingly profitable for the big banks. They made billions and billions on their 2% fee they got for selling each of these bonds. But then they started running out of mortgages to put in them. After all, there are only so many homes and so many people with good enough jobs to buy them, right? So the banks started filling these bonds with riskier and riskier mortgages. Thank you, Banjo. That way, they can keep that profit machine churning, right?
this movie clip comes from The Big Short in 2015 with Christian Bale and Steve Carell. In this movie, Christian Bale and Steve Carell are the only two people in the nation, or a part of a very small group, that see the result of everyone turning a blind eye to bad real estate deals that required the negligence of several industries at once: banking, real estate, financial regulators, the works, that ultimately resulted in millions of foreclosed homes around the nation, a global recession, a $700 billion taxpayer bailout, also known as TARP. Later, even Alan Greenspan admitting the flaws in his free market ideology. Our next example leaves corporate society alone as we bother those obsessed with viral content. 100 unarmed men versus one silverback gorilla. The milk crate challenge.
No crying over spilled milk, but within about 60 seconds of opening the TikTok app, you'll quickly find that there's actually a lot of crying over spilled milk crates happening. That's right, the newest viral challenge has taken the internet, as well as hospitals, by storm, after many attempt to put their best foot forward only to end up with their worst injury lying dead ahead.
And all those hot dance moves that turn the working class into a well-choreographed step team. I wonder, if Paula Abdul was still in her prime, would she be the world's most viral sensation or a starving influencer? I guess some questions don't need answers. As Monkey See, Monkey Do is on full-scale display, one great thing is seeing how knowledge is able to spread. But unfortunately, misinformation can spread at the same rate as true knowledge. But we'll talk about that later in the video, about how to raise your discernment to be able to spot the difference. The truth of social media is that it's not really an antmeal for everyone. Thanks to algorithms, social media is more of a mirror reflecting your interest in a purely nonsense machine showing nothing but dancing, flipping, twerking, and pranking. And lastly, even if your social media algorithm is filled with the most esoteric of knowledge and more rare facts and information, too much information without action only bestows you with the burden of the responsibility to act on your new knowledge, or the universe may punish you. For that new information has transformed your ignorance into negligence.
And the last common death spiral I want to address right now is in pro sports. And I don't mean with the players or the owners, not this time. I'm talking about the fans. That's right. I'm talking about the loyal fans, the die-hard fans that remain fans of the team through thick and thin, no matter what. The fans that are more loyal to their team than they are their spouse. Now, blind fan loyalty gives the owners the ability to silence, trade, unfairly treat, or even blackball players because they know their loyal fans will still be there in the morning. All right? Now, how does this happen? It's not from a bad place. I understand this happens because people's desire to display good traits such as loyalty, displaying that you've been a fan for any team throughout the wins and losses. This shows that you're a good person with morals. But unfortunately, entertainment can be weaponized or exploit our best traits in sports is a form of entertainment that is no different, all right? So I'm not going to advise something as drastic as erasing sports from your life, but rather suggesting that you change the way that you consume it, all right? Now, by becoming a fan of individual players, organizations would feel the monetary consequences of unfair player treatment versus you just being fans of the organization no matter what. No matter what player they decide to blackball, no matter what player they decide, hey, I don't like his bravado, so I'm going to go ahead and knock him down a peg. Or you don't, even if they want to blackball a player that can still play, if they want to twist the words of an athlete, and it gives the media the ability to form false narratives without penalty. And, you know, you're just giving these people the the right to run amok.
But now that you've seen a couple of examples on groupthink gone wild, let's look at some examples on what it looks like when someone displays the courage to break the chain of groupthink. Let's use the Alabama Sweet Tea Party of August 5th, 2023 as an example.
Can't recall a time when that many people from all walks of life, when that many people from all kinds of orientations, all kinds of educations, all kinds of political stripes, different perspectives, all agreed on one thing. It was because, I believe in my estimation, how many times have we watched someone on social media, or on the news, or in other kinds of medias, watch someone get beaten or disrespected or called out of their name? And how many times have we said, you know what, I wish I was there when something like that happened? How many times have we got to sit idly by when something like that happened and only go, man, if I were there when that happened? Well, apparently a lot of people who felt like that were. Especially to everybody. I mean, there were so many things, like the man throwing up his black cap. So apparently now we have an antidote to the MAGA red hat, is the black one. Apparently now we can make our own events, not a triathlon, but a try-me-athlon. The nicknames were hilarious, but there was a specific sense of pride that was palpable. It was palpable. It was proud. You were proud to watch people be everything that society has told us that we're not. Or they don't stick together, or they can't swim, or they turn the other way. This time, on this day, at that very moment, I think black people coalesced, saw something that was wrong, and did something about it. They didn't wait. They didn't see what was going on. They didn't go, well, maybe he bought it on himself. It ain't none of my business. I mind my own. None of that happened. People, when Alita Adams said, get here if you can, they did. And they came to the aid of someone. And it's interesting how silent the media is about it. It's interesting how, no one's making really. I remember this. I remember a couple of months ago, a young man choked another man to death on the subway train, held him by his neck for 15 minutes till he was dead. And that man was heralded as a hero. That man was singled out by political people running for president, governors, police officers, mayors. They said that a man who held another man by the neck till he was dead for 15 minutes was a good Samaritan. But what I saw the other day, what I saw this weekend, was all these people coming to the aid of a stranger and putting themselves in harm's way just to stop thugs from attacking a man just doing his job. And the narrative is abjectly silent. It's no one saying the types of things that they said when we watched a man choke another man to death.
Oftentimes, breaking groupthink inspires others to act instead of hoping someone else solves the problem. By this young man displaying his willingness to get in the water with whatever other animal is in that water, mess up his hair, mess up his clothes, defend a human in need, he removed many smaller excuses people were giving themselves to stand by instead of assisting this man. And if he knew he would have had so much help, maybe he wouldn't have jumped in. But if he didn't jump in, so many people may not have helped. But thanks to this young man's heroism, we didn't have to find out. Another great example of groupthink being broken can be illustrated in the 1957 cinema classic 12 Angry Men, starring one of my favorite actors, Jack Lemmon. It illustrates a group that knows groupthink is most convenient for everyone in the jury room, but a man's freedom depends on unbiased critical thinking.
Here's what I think happened.
How can you be positive about anything?
I don't understand you people. I mean, all these picky little points you keep bringing up, they don't mean nothing.
You are going to try a man for murder.
Definitely a recommended watch whenever you get a chance. I like this movie because it shows groupthink and how it can affect us all as a society racially. But I like that movie because it was made in the 50s. It means no matter what we're going through today racially, it was probably harder for everybody in that room to do a little more speaking up back then. So definitely give it a watch. And at this point, you might be asking yourself a pretty good question. Well, how do I overcome my fears? How do I make sure that I don't participate in groupthink? What are the steps? Well, let's talk about them.
Now, ants can't escape their spiral, but we can. And the roadmap to freedom is written right in our own biology, the 7 chakras. Now let's break it down. By overcoming the fears of being ostracized or singled out by people that allow convenience to determine their integrity, you're aligning your root chakra, which focuses on our feeling of safety. Next, by leaning into our creativity, we find the future path most harmonious to our past skills already acquired and believing that you have the foundation already for your desired life. Be like water. By doing this, you are aligning your sacral chakra. This one is for creativity, pleasure, and emotional well-being. By summoning the courage and willpower to act on the creativity you already know is inside you, you are aligning your solar plexus or fire chakra. The fire in your belly needed to bring your creativity to fruition can be identified by one's levels of self-esteem and confidence. Now, as you find what you love outside the spiral and use it as a compass, you will be aligning your heart chakra. This can usually be identified by something you can do all day or talk about all night. And let's face it, ants can't speak, but you can. By courageously speaking with passion, you'll feel genuine and sound authentic, as this is the result of an aligned throat chakra. Once you have the vision to identify the spiral in traditions, current trends, at work, and even with friends and family members, only then will you have aligned your third eye chakra. And now that you've seen this video, you know it's built in our animal nature to follow the crowd, so the ants aren't alone in that feeling. The aligned crown chakra understands most are in the spiral due to a pre-discussed misalignment of one or more chakras, and knowing and respecting everyone's path of unfoldment and using yourself as a display of the method you encourage, opposed to lecturing others about it but still behaving the same way they do. For more information about energy centers and chakras, please check out our chakra series coming to the channel very soon, so it should actually be on the channel by the time you finish this video. There we discuss how to identify imbalances, talk about some of the side effects, and how to better align yourself in that emotional energy center or chakra. For individual or couples alignment sessions, go ahead, call, email, or visit the website in the description. This is your alignment apostle, the Ramen Shaman, reminding you to love your brother as you would love yourself.